those of radio station KMET, its management, employees, or affiliates.
This is 1490 AM KMET, Banning, Beaumont, Redlands, and Palm Springs. News, talk, sports.
From ABC News, I'm Daria Albinger. The White House says it will overturn a federal judge's ruling that blocks President Trump's extreme vetting executive order. It prevents many citizens of 7 majority Muslim countries from entering the U.S. ABC's Alex Mallon says the president is fighting in familiar form.
The president reacted to Judge James Robart's ruling, tweeting, quote, "The opinion of this so-called judge, which essentially takes law enforcement away from our country, is ridiculous and will be overturned." The Department of Justice will seek an emergency appeal of the order, but for the time being, at least, the 60,000 visa holders will now temporarily be allowed in. Alex Mallon, ABC News, Palm Beach, Florida.
Constitutional law expert Jonathan Turley, a professor at George Washington University Law School, says there's something the Justice Department could have done.
I was very surprised that the Justice Department did not have an emergency filing ready to go in Seattle. That's something of a blunder.
So for now, if you have a valid visa, you can enter the U.S. no matter where you're from.
International carriers responding. British Airways in a statement saying we will always meet our obligations under international immigration agreements. All customers with the correct documentation will be accepted for travel. Similar statements from Lufthansa, Air France, Qatar Airways, and KLM. Domestic carriers also saying it's back to business as usual.
ABC's Dave Packer. The order may be on hold, but the protests continue.
I stand here as a Jewish man who fights every day for the civil rights of my Muslim neighbors.
That's attorney Albert Kahn, who represents the Council on American Islamic Relations at a rally today outside New York City's historic Stonewall Inn. The top Democrat in the Senate says the president's criticism of the federal judge who blocked the order has forced them to raise the bar on judicial nominees. Minority Leader Chuck Schumer says that includes Supreme Court nominee Neil Gorsuch. You're listening to ABC News.
Brought to you by Attorney Tax. If you're in trouble with the IRS and owe at least $10,000 in back taxes, listen to this important public announcement. The IRS is now offering a special program called the Fresh Start Initiative, which can offer significantly reduced settlements that can reduce your liability by thousands of dollars. These unique programs have been allocated to help the economy and substantially reduce or eliminate your tax burden. If you're approved and qualified, the IRS will stop the collections against you. Don't feel overwhelmed. Please call the Consumer Hotline to see if you qualify. 800-535-3787. Stop the wage garnishments, levies, and tax liens now. If you owe more than $10,000 to the IRS, you may qualify for substantial relief and even forgiveness. See if you qualify and get the help you need by calling the Consumer Hotline. 800-535-3787. That's 800-535-3787. 800-535-3787.
Want a ticket to the Super Bowl? You may be in for some sticker shock.
For the money that New England Patriots fan John Nolan has paid to see Tom Brady square off against Matt Ryan.
You could buy an American car or, put a down payment on a house, probably.
And he's not alone. The average price of a seat at Super Bowl 51 is $1,300. Factor in hotel, food, and transportation, and the cost is through the roof. Buyer's regret? Not for John Nolan.
It's 100% worth it, yeah.
Jim Ryan, ABC News, Houston.
Now, you've heard about disgraced CEOs who are accused of lining their pockets. An executive who just stepped down in Washington state is also accused of lining his employees.
The Port of Seattle's chief executive, who resigned Thursday less than 3 years after he was hired, wrote in his resignation, quote, "I have come to the realization that my talents and strengths are better suited to the private sector." The exact details of some of Ted Fick's mismanagement was revealed amid an investigation that determined the port had illegally given more than 600 workers about $4.7 million in extra pay. Those payments were an unlawful gift under the state constitution. Port documents also show that Fick determined he was eligible to receive a $24,500 raise. He never mentioned the apparent conflict of interest in making that decision. Todd Ant, ABC News.
Got a computer question? In some Israeli schools, you can ask a 4th grader. They're already learning computer programming, while gifted 10th graders take after-school classes in encryption tactics and other things. It's part of Israel's quest to become the world's leader in cybersecurity. This is ABC News.
After a busy day, you look forward to the comfort of a good night's sleep. But is your current mattress measuring up? Are you experiencing comfort that cradles, supports, and cools? Serta created the iComfort Hybrid mattress to deliver exactly this. Redesigned from the inside out, the Serta iComfort Hybrid intelligently responds to your individual needs without you needing to do anything. No buttons to press, no adjusting. Simply immerse yourself in Serta iComfort Hybrid. It's comfort reimagined.
Daria Albinger, ABC News.
From the KMET Weather Center for Beaumont and the Pass area this morning, there's a chance for showers. Otherwise, we'll have a mostly sunny day with a high 59 with winds to 25 miles an hour. We'll have some patchy fog tonight. Unity Park County, a low 45 with winds to 20 miles an hour. Sunday, there's a slight chance of an afternoon shower. We'll have a mostly sunny day with a high 63 with winds to 20 miles an hour. For the Inland Empire today, we can expect mostly sunny skies at a high of 62. For the desert cities, it'll be sunny, our high 71. I'm Rod Tanner for Smart Talk 1490 KMET.
Don't miss the next evening meeting of the Banning Beaumont Cherry Valley Tea Party. We're going to be graced by two local mayors. Banning Mayor George Moyer and Beaumont Mayor Lloyd White will be speaking, answering audience questions. We'll also have our continuing series of Constitution classes by Douglas V. Gibbs. That's 5 p.m. February 9th at the Farms House Restaurant in Banning. Hope to see you there.
The following is a paid program. Views and claims expressed are those of the program producer and are not endorsed by this station. Opinions expressed are not necessarily those of radio station KMET, its management, employees, or affiliates.
Welcome back. Constitution Radio on KMET 1490 AM, second hour. Hey, you know that music that starts at the beginning of my show? That's actually a song that was created for me. If you want to purchase it, I'm not kidding. You can go to Amazon, look up Political Pistachio Theme, and that song is available for 99 cents. It's a part of a larger CD album by Thomas Pibal, P-I-B-A-L. So, and Thomas created that theme specifically for me. It's about a minute and a half. Every once in a while, rare occasions, I'll play the whole thing. But anyway, welcome back to the program. Alex is what'd you say, is as happy as a bug in a rug? Is that about the second?
Yeah. My platitudes go back many years.
Yeah, you age yourself. Now, you're not in the studio today, but we'll get you back in once we get that new studio going. We've got a few things we're working on. Always trying to make the show better for you listeners. And it is you that brings the show, makes it important. Let's put it that way. If it wasn't for you listening, I'd have no reason to talk. 951-922-3532 if you want to call in and tell us how good or bad a job we're doing. That's right. I said good or bad. I can handle both sides. All right. As we go into the second hour, I also want to remind everybody this second hour is brought to us by the gentlemen that are in the office with me. And we're going to go into their ads about 20 after, but I don't want to mention that we have Dennis Jackson in here with us, and he's from Bravas Corp, and he's also the executive producer. I know he gets bashful about the executive producer title, but he is the executive producer of Enemies Within, the film. So you can look up enemieswithinmovie.com. And if anything, just buy it so you can see Dennis Jackson's name show up as executive producer. No, the film is incredible. Every American should see it. The other one, I'm going to let Kurt real quick, a quick intro. He's the other advertisers bringing us the second hour. And what is it that you do that in a real quick intro, and then we'll do a full thing at the 20 after?
Absolutely. Franchise Experts 360 is a franchise consulting firm that I own, and we help executives and small business owners purchase successful businesses within the franchise world.
Wow.
Is that quick enough?
That was no. I was surprised you got so much into that. Such a quick. That was incredible. You're almost as good as I am.
Almost. Not quite.
Welcome back to the show, folks. Constitution Radio on KMET 1490 AM. Our mothership of constitutional literacy, and we have talked a lot about the U.S. Constitution. We just finished talking about Dennis Kucinich, but I want to get back to the Trump's travel ban because there's a lot of fascinating things that go along with it that I really want to bring up. And we talked about the laws. Let's go back real quick. It was done by executive order. Let me say this real quick. One of the gifts that Barack Obama gave to Donald J. Trump is that he did almost everything by executive order. So you can get rid of executive orders with, guess what? Executive orders. So it gives Trump a lot of quick ability to just dismantle Obama's destruction of America. Had Obama gone through Congress somehow and pulled a lot of this off congressionally, then it would have to be done legislatively. But because of his, and a lot of these executive orders by Obama were unlawful and unconstitutional, but because he created them by executive order, constitutionally, Donald J. Trump can remove them by executive order, first of all. Second of all, when it comes to executive orders, they are constitutional in the sense that if they're a proclamation or a rule dictated down through the executive branch, remember, the president is the boss of the executive branch. So all the people in the executive branch are his employees. Executive orders are for sending them their instructions on how to carry out their duties. So that's a part of what executive order is supposed to be. Also proclamations, like Thanksgiving proclamation, the Day of Prayer proclamation. Those are executive orders. By being proclamations, they're not legally binding. In other words, on the day of National Day of Prayer, everybody doesn't have to pray. Although it'd be a good idea probably, but everybody doesn't have to pray. It's not a law, nor should it be or could it be because of the First Amendment. But it is a proclamation. Hey, we have declared this is National Day of Prayer. Those of you who want to be a part of it, have at it. Proclamation. Thanksgiving proclamation by George Washington. That was one of his 2 or 3 executive orders. What's interesting is of the first 4 presidents, I think it was like a total of 8 executive orders between the 4 of them. And then you start getting into the double digits after that, and then finally get Teddy Roosevelt. And his was hundreds. And it's been hundreds by most of these guys ever since. But nonetheless, Barack Obama, where he was not doing well with executive orders, is he was using them to act legislatively, to modify law. However, when it comes to Trump's executive order on immigration and refugees, which he signed and put out there, and the protesters going nuts, all that, and it basically put a freeze on immigration and travel into the United States from 7 countries that are either historically or currently supporters and a funding source for the Islamic Jihad, or has actors committing terrorism throughout their population. And we just simply can't trust the alleged refugees coming here from those countries not to be part of that jihad effort. So the ban is a 120-day program designed to drastically cut the number of persons that we admit into this country that come from those regions, 7 countries. And while the liberal left is calling the executive order cruel, did you see Chuck Schumer crying?
Were those real tears, or did he squirt his face where he came in on the camera?
Trump actually asked Kucinich, or not Kucinich, Schumer. He says, "I want to know who your acting coach is." You know, so because it was pretty good. But anyway, well, these executive orders by Trump do support laws around the books. Yet we have a judge who has decided to halt Trump's travel ban nationwide. As if the judge is above the president and the law. Well, it doesn't matter what the Constitution says, or he's come up with his own version of the Constitution saying he can halt it. And first of all, let me explain something. The judges are not there to check the president and the Congress. The Congress is there to check the president and the judges. Congress needs to be doing its job and telling the judge through a piece of legislation. That's called the Exceptions Clause, by the way, where the authority comes in Article 3. That was unconstitutional, Judge, and we're going to nullify it with this piece of legislation.
Well, and you got to throw the Supreme Court in there as well. That's the other check and balance to our beautiful system. So,
absolutely.
Right?
Now, and that also brings up Gorsuch. Gorsuch, who was just he's not appointed yet, but he's been nominated. But Dennis, now you and I have talked about judicial review and the judicial branch and their authorities. So when you hear that a federal judge of Seattle has issued a temporary nationwide restraining order stopping President Trump's executive order banning citizens of 7 countries from entering the United States, what's your first thought?
Well, it's just more judicial legislation.
Right.
Which I think Gorsuch has been very eloquent concerning. He, as a judge now, as a nominee for the Supreme Court, is well defining that on the Supreme Court, that shouldn't occur. And in his professional life up to this point in time, it hasn't occurred. But with all the other liberal, obviously, if they can't get it through legislation, they try to get it through the courts. And that's exactly what's going on now. And I figured this was going to happen. I just didn't know who it was going to come from.
Well, Washington attorney that had brought the case before the judge or put the case in play is Attorney General Bob Ferguson, Washington Attorney General Bob Ferguson. He said in a statement after the ruling, no one is above the law, not even the president. The Constitution prevailed today. Well, wait a second. And then he said, it is our president's duty to honor this ruling, and I'll make sure he does. Honor this ruling or honor the Constitution? Which is higher?
Obviously, the Constitution.
But we have judges saying, well, no, we are the interpreters of the Constitution. We can get the Constitution to mean anything at once if we just say so.
And that's dangerous. That's a slippery slope, right?
Well, and that's because of the abdication of Congress over the last many decades, both Republican and Democrat.
What's even more fascinating, by the way, is that Seattle judge was appointed by George Bush in 2003.
That's very interesting. I think Trump needs to go back to his apprentice days and go up to that judge and say, you're fired.
Yeah.
Whenever I see the Democrats start pressing for civil rights issues, I realize that it's ledger domain, it's sleight of hand. They're covering something. And what they're covering is that Saudi Arabia will not take any of these refugees. Other Arab countries, Muslim countries, will not take them. And the question is why, and why don't we insist on it? We could send money to, if we had to, they got money coming out their ears, but we could send money to Saudi Arabia and pay them to take care of these people where their own culture exists, their own language and all that kind of stuff, but they won't do it. And the reason they won't do it is because it's another way to rip apart the American society by flooding us with Muslims. And you say, well, that's a religious intolerance. Islam is not just a religion. It is an economic system. It is a cultural system. It is a legal system. And it directly challenges the Constitution of the United States.
They believe Sharia is the law of the land over the Constitution.
You can't
so is
have
that not
Sharia
the attempt
law
to overthrow the American government?
So what I'm saying is the first thing they ought to do is demand a pledge from these people that they observe the Constitution of the United States over Sharia. If they don't come in.
That's a great point, Alex. I think we have to take this another step further, too, is if the problem is the Muslim or Islam faith, if that's where all of this is being seeded from, why is it not the Muslim community and the Muslim countries who are not fighting and battling this garbage? Why is it up to us to take care of this? And we as a society have got to now protect our way of life, and we've got to put this back on the Muslim. Why is the good Muslim people who they say, Muslim or Islam is not a violent faith, but yet this offshoot is? Why is the Muslim faith internally not coming together and saying and pointing all these people out and going after them internally?
Because they support the jihad and they're a part of this jihad. Simple as that.
Well, if I can go back, Doug mentioned this a little earlier, but in 1952, the McCarran-Walter Act, it also says, and I'll give it a quote, applicant for immigration must be of good moral character and in agreement with the principles of our Constitution. So if they're coming in and they're Sharia-oriented, and most of them are, and surveys have said that Muslims in general in Europe are probably running anywhere from 70 to 75% pro-Sharia law, and even Muslims here in the United States, I believe it's close to 50%, don't have a problem with Sharia law. The more those people that come in here, there's an undercurrent of a detraction from the Constitution being the supreme law of the land.
Right.
Something like 10%
you must
of them
assimilate
admit,
when you come in.
Something like 10% of these people admit that they support jihad. They support violence in the name of Islam.
Well, this is the White House's reaction to that Seattle judge's order. They said they pledged action at the earliest possible time. The Department of Justice intends to file an emergency stay of the order and defend the executive order of the president, which we believe is lawful and appropriate. White House initially labeled the judge's action an outrageous order, but within 10 minutes had sent a second nearly identical statement that stripped out the adjective outrageous. But the president's, this is what it's, and this is part of their statement. The president's order is intended to protect the homeland, and he has the constitutional authority and responsibility to protect the American people. State Department said it was working with the Department of Homeland Security to determine how the ruling affects operations. And I'm going to tell you right now, the ruling should be a non-starter. It shouldn't matter because the president, if he's acting upon legislation, which he is, the judges have no action, and they shouldn't anyway. They're supposed to apply the law to the cases they hear, not dictate to different branches what they can or can't do, or change whether or not a law can be in place because of their opinion of the law. That's up to Congress. It all begins and ends with Congress. And what Congress, once again, needs to do here, in my opinion, is act upon the exceptions clause, pass a piece of legislation, let Trump sign it, that nullifies this piece of legislation. Or, I mean, this order by this judge. Just completely nullify it. And show that they are the ones that are in charge here, not the courts. Courts are not there to check Congress. Congress is there to check the courts. And the Congress is being followed by the president. It's the president's job to execute the laws put out by the legislature or the Congress. And that's exactly what he's doing. All right, when we return after the break, we suspect we're going to have Trevor Loudon from Enemies Within with us. We're also going to talk about Supreme Court nominee Neil Gorsuch and the Los Angeles Republicans. That's right. There are a handful of them in the city. In fact, in South Central, you'd be stunned. I'll tell you about my report from last Sunday when I had the opportunity to spend some time with a Republican club in South Central when we return. Help me fight the good fight. This radio program is funded by advertising dollars. So, if you are a business, add Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs to your business portfolio. If you are a listener, become a patron of the business's advertising on this program. Without advertising, your weekend dose of truth ends. With more advertising, Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs grows, and we will be on the way to win the battle to restore the Republic. To learn more, email us at constitutionspeaker@yahoo.com or visit douglasvgibbs.com. This segment of the program is brought to you by the new documentary movie Enemies Within, based on the book of the same name written by Trevor Loudon. I've seen this movie and I've met and interviewed Trevor, and all I can say is everyone in this country who saw this movie and the direction of this country would, if everyone saw this movie, the direction of this country would dramatically change for the better. This movie rips the mask off of over 100 members of Congress that are under the control of socialists, communists, and the Muslim Brotherhood and could not pass a standard FBI security check. I encourage everyone to see this movie. It is available at enemieswithinmovie.com. You can rent it or buy it, so go to enemieswithinmovie.com and get the movie. Tell your friends, and if you really want to understand why the Democrats do what they are doing, you need to know their masters. Again, go to enemieswithinmovie.com.
And brought to you by Franchise Experts 360. Go visit www.franchiseexperts360.com, a full-service franchise consulting firm that will help you invest into a successful franchise business model across the USA. Again, www.franchiseexperts360.com.
Okay, welcome back, Constitution Radio. I am Douglas V. Gibbs, douglasvgibbs.com. We're right here on KMET 1490 AM. You can listen online at KMET1490am.com. And that's right, you can download the app for your smartphone. Make your phone smarter with the KMET smartphone app. Go to KMET1490am.com with your smartphone, and right there on the page is the link. Just click it for your app for either Apple or Android. Okay, on the line with us, because we just mentioned Enemies Within movie, and I'm glad we're going to have him with us here. Trevor Loudon. Trevor Loudon is actually not even in the state right now, but he has taken some time out of his busy schedule to join us on the program. And I want not only to talk about this film, but we've got a few things going on here that I think definitely brings him into the important part of this conversation when it comes to this executive order regarding the travel ban, and also these people who are protesting. Trevor, earlier I labeled the protesters as a part of, well, they're terrorists, are they not? They're domestic terrorists creating terrorism in the country. If anybody else had been doing this kind of damage to Berkeley and NYU and so on and so forth, they would be labeled domestic terrorists, but yet these leftist loonies are not.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Most people got to understand these are not just college kids or little anarchists going crazy. These are led by hardened professional revolutionaries who have connections to Putin's Russia, they have connections to Iran, they have connections to Latin American terrorist groups, to Middle Eastern terrorist groups. They are heavy people. And these protests are being orchestrated by the Workers' World Party, which supports Iran and Russia. You've got the Freedom Road Socialist Organization, which supports terrorist groups in Latin America. So yeah, they are hunkering down for a 4-year war against Donald Trump.
Trevor, I know that in the last month, you and Judd have told me about a 20-minute documentary that you guys just finished for the Capitol Research Center that basically was trying to get behind the face of these protesters to see who really is supporting it. And I was really quite stunned when I saw that movie about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, with the number of people and the amount of detail you had. So this is in line with what Doug was just asking. Tell us a little bit about what you found out in that 20-minute movie.
Yeah, look, people can go and see this online. It's available free. It's called America Under Siege, Civil War 2017. And so we looked at the leading anti-protest groups, the J20 groups, the groups that were trying to shut down the inauguration. And what we found is that several of them were sending people to Russia, to the anti-globalization movement of Russia, which is funded by the Putin regime, which is trying to build an anti-American worldwide movement. And these people are working directly with it. Some of them are also working for the Iranians. Some of them are connected to the Venezuelans. So these are guys who have been in the protest movement, some of them for 40 years, since the Vietnam War. And they are fully professional, paid communist agitators. And if anybody tells me that communism is dead in America, I say, look at Black Lives Matter, look at the Standing Rock protests up in North Dakota over the Access Pipeline, and look at the massive riots you have seen in the last few days, and look at the violence you saw in the lead up to the election. All of it, absolutely all of it, was orchestrated by communists, Marxists, with ties to the Russians, with ties to Cuba, North Korea, Iran, and other enemy regimes of the United States.
Well, I find it highly ironic, and if you could make a comment on this, that the America Under Siege, Civil War 2017, a movie that you just mentioned, was actually released the Thursday before the inauguration. That was the intent, and I thought, in my view, that it was going to hit with maybe a little more splash, because the Trump administration knew at the inauguration this, protest. I thought that this movie was going to be used more to undercut them ahead of time, to say these are the guys that are really behind it. And then in light of Berkeley, NYU, and the other things, it would seem that it's very ripe right now for this to really be kind of a primetime thing on the news with what you're talking about. The other irony is the Russians supposedly were working with Trump to defeat Hillary, when it's Hillary that would be enacting their agenda. If anything, Trump would be their worst nightmare. So,
well, that was my response to that when they were accusing the Russians of trying to get Trump in. I said, it makes no sense. It absolutely makes no sense. There's no logic in that, because look what Russia was able to do under a Democrat president when it came to the Crimea and South Ossetia and Ukraine and so on.
They had a free run.
Yeah, free run to attack without impunity. Trevor Loudon, Trevor, thanks for being on with us. But so the film really points out who's behind all of this.
Yeah, it does, and people need to realize that Russia has still got that old world domination dream. They don't have the communism. They don't have the communism to inspire people now. But as one of the guys in the movie says, the other half of their agenda was always to sow chaos. And that's what they have now. They are trying to sow chaos in the Western countries. That's why Putin caused the problems he did in Syria, because that drove a whole lot of refugees into Europe and has created chaos there. Now he's doing the same to America.
Trevor. It's real fascinating. I was reading a biography of Cicero. And in his biography of Cicero, it explains how when Rome changed from being a republic to an empire, and the leader before Julius Caesar used street gangs to create chaos in the streets. And I thought that was fascinating when I read that. This is an old tactic. It's nothing new.
It's a very old tactic, and it's very professionally done, and it's very well organized. There's nothing spontaneous about any of it. We had the media, and we do that in the beginning of the movie. We show the media saying, there's no evidence of organization. This is just spontaneous people. They're upset about Trump or illegal immigration or whatever, and they're just out there in the streets showing their feelings. It's all complete BS. It is completely 100% orchestrated. There's a bunch of these young kids who will just go out and do what they're told to do and create mayhem. But the leaders are all professional revolutionaries. And this has been going on since, before the Vietnam War. This has always been a part of culture. And it's, as you say, it goes back to Cicero. It goes back to Rome. The mob has always had people inciting them. And most Americans would think that, communism died with the Berlin Wall. So they don't make the obvious connection that all these movements are communist inspired. But what I do is I name the names. I show the people. I show them talking in their own movie clips, boasting about what they're going to do and their affiliations. So I challenge anybody to see that 20-minute movie and tell me where I'm wrong.
Alex, you tried to say something a moment ago. Go ahead.
One of our biggest problems is that the left has programmed the public to have a knee-jerk reaction. When somebody mentions communism, you're a McCarthyite, you're a slanderer, you want to take away people's reputation and living and all this kind of stuff. Trevor Loudon is probably the best medicine to counter that kind of attitude. But that's what we've got going. As soon as you say communist, boom, you're McCarthy.
Well, tell me,
that's
Trevor,
right.
The shorter movie you just did about the anti-inauguration group, and then, of course, the larger movie, the hour-and-a-half movie, Enemies Within, which, goes through the congressman, name by name, and it covers about 100 people. Some of the people that you've interviewed, such as Frank Gaffney and others, do have relationships growing within the Trump administration. Do you see any adoption more aggressively with the new administration to these themes and ideas in these last two movies, to where they might actually refer to them and try to drive people to them, to see them as a cure for the social mainstream media garbage that's going on now?
Well, I think they, I've heard Donald Trump say things which I believe were direct quotes from the movie, but I know that a whole bunch of key people in the Trump administration have seen the movie. I know that there are connections between some of the people we've interviewed and key people in the Trump administration, and there have been some recent appointments of some very serious individuals who know exactly what we are talking about here. So, yes, I think Trump is beginning to understand, if he doesn't already, that he's in a war. This is a 4-year war. to take down his administration. And they're serious. These are serious people directed from overseas. And so, yes, I think there will be firm action taken. And I think the material we're putting out, we've got more movies on the way dealing with different aspects of that. I think they'll do well. You know, we had 300,000 views, I think, on the latest little movie in a few days, which is a big chunk of the American population. So,
during the George W. Bush administration, they launched a war against him, and we thought at the time, wow, they're really unhinged. We haven't seen the Democrats this out of their minds, and then here comes Trump, and they're even more out of their minds. It's like they stepped it up about 18 notches.
Oh, well, they did, because, you see, they thought Hillary was going to win, and they thought they were going to get a socialist America. They thought she was going to, finish Obama's work for them, and so they're basically like a bunch of kids who thought they were going to get a bike for Christmas and ended up getting a pair of socks. They are angry. They are angry.
Yeah, Trevor.
I know. Well, I'm sure we all know that feeling. But so they are. This is going to be way beyond what they did to George Bush. And they are really, because they understand that Trump is way more of a danger to their agenda than any Bush ever was.
Hopefully, they're going to show their hand.
Well, they are. They are showing their hand,
And it's documented. We just need to find a way of getting it into the mainstream so that the American public can see what's going on.
Well, people have asked me if we're going to go into a civil war, a big revolution, and I have said there's two reasons why we won't. What they're doing is they're poking us in the chest, trying to get us to react. They still want to be careful not to overly reveal who they are, number one. But the other thing that stops them, and I'll hand it over to Kurt in a second, is that we're still armed. And as long as we're armed, and they think we're crazy enough to use our firearms, then that's one of the things that's holding them back. Okay, Kurt?
Yeah. Good point, Doug.
I think
thank God for the
true.
Second Amendment for that as well, because that protected us in World War II. But, hey, Trevor, this is Kurt. A quick question for you. Why is Homeland Security not involved in this and investigating this and trying to crack down and get these guys?
Well, I think maybe they will be, because I know that Kelly, the new head of Homeland Security, is very, very switched on, and I think he will, but it's just too early yet, And a lot of the Homeland Security people will still be holdovers, obviously, from the Obama administration. So, but I think what we saw after the events in Washington was interesting, because a lot of these young kids got arrested, and normally they get bailed out and they're on the streets the next day. A lot of them are still in jail. And this is freaking out. This is freaking out some of the protesters, because this isn't supposed to be happening that way. They're being held on some heavy charges. But I just want to make a point. We got a message from a former leading communist recently who was actually in our first movie. And this is his theory on what they're actually trying to do. Now, these communists are trying to create havoc in the streets. They'll push it to social breakdown if they could, but their immediate goal is a little different. What they want to do is set the stage for a Trump impeachment, because they know that they need about 60 to impeach or to vote for impeachment in the Senate. They've got 48 Democrats or 47 Democrats or whatever. They need 10 or 12 squishy Republicans to flip, and they are trying to create such conditions that it scares these squishy Republicans to backstab Trump and vote for impeachment. That's what they are trying to do here. And that's a credible strategy, because you can imagine some of these Susan Collins and others, or Olympia Snows or whatever they are, you can imagine them voting to impeach Trump if they were given the excuse.
Well, if you put Trump's conservative agenda up against the vice president's, Mike Pence does not have the outward brashness strong ego personality, but when it comes to principles, I mean, he's right there. So
he's even more conservative.
Yeah, if anything, they'd be going as far
but
as
he's easier
philosophy.
but I think he would be easier to control because he's not as brash, and also he's a part of the establishment, the system. There are people that give him money. You can't control someone who no one gives money to. Trump doesn't need anybody's money. He can't be bought.
Yeah, they're more scared of Trump because he's less predictable, and as more of them. Pence, I think they would be more confident about managing him. That's what I think. So I like Mike Pence, but don't get me wrong.
I love the guy too.
But it also discredit if they can impeach the president, it stalls everything for months. It slows down the agenda. It discredits the Republican Party. It just makes things hard to get things done. You know how you saw how Clinton was stalled from his agenda during those impeachment hearings, back with Gingrich and that. So that's what they intend to do, if they can do that. So these riots are designed to frighten the Republican squishers to the point that they stop backing Trump's agenda and will even back impeachment proceedings against him. So this isn't designed to frighten Trump. This is designed to frighten the Lindsey Grahams and the John McCains and those of that ilk.
Trevor, when it comes to the voters and the Democrat supporters, I truly believe this is really a minority when it comes to the voters, and that in reality, for some Democrats, what's going on in the streets is pushing them away from the Democrat Party and moving them towards Trump. Is my theory? Do you agree with my theory?
Yeah, look, I absolutely do agree with that. And see, we could see a major realignment in U.S. politics here because see what the plan was. For the Democrats, the plan was to unite the white progressives, 26% of the electorate, with the 39% progressive people of color, the blacks, the Latinos, Asian Americans, who the Democrat Party thought they owned. Now, that was supposed to give them the 55% majority that would have carried Hillary Clinton and to victory. But what Trump's done by going to the inner cities and telling the black population, what have you got to lose, he has drawn some of those across. He's drawn some of those white union voters across and a higher proportion of Latinos. So if he can get on top of the crime in the inner cities, if he can bring jobs back to the inner cities and actually raise the standard of living for these groups, he will draw them away from the Democratic Party forever. And
that's one of the things I'm actually working on with the Congress of Racial Equality and Niger Ennis. I've been working with Niger Ennis.
Good. Yeah, Niger's a great guy, yeah. Well, I've been working with him, and he said something that was very fascinating. He said that Trump not only got more of the black vote than Romney did, but he also got a lot of the black vote that people didn't realize, and that was black voters voting with their butts by refusing to vote for Hillary, just didn't go to the poll. Yeah, Hillary. Look, if the blacks had voted the normal numbers for the Democrats, Hillary would have been president today. But a whole bunch of them stayed home because they just was disgusted with her. So yeah, Niger Ennis is a great guy, and I'm sorry to hear his father Roy died recently. But that's what could bring about it. If Trump does this right and the people back him, there could be a major realignment in American politics that could put the Democrats back for years. It really could. If Trump stalls, if the people don't back him, in 2020 we'll be back to square one, and we'll have someone like Cory Booker in the White House.
Yeah, I said something recently to someone who they found it fascinating is, remember when we were so disappointed that Romney lost? It's a good thing he lost because it opened the door for a Trump.
To come in.
Romney would have been controlled and may even set back the Republican Party. And it really, by getting a total of 8 years of Obama, really opened the door for a Trump I guess from my point of view, God's got a good handle on what's going on, or at least that's my opinion.
Much better than
we do.
Divine
intervention going on here, huh?
Yeah.
Well, I think there was, and he can see things a lot more further ahead than me, or us. But I think this election has been good for another reason too, because there's a whole bunch of people out there who would say, "Oh, we can never win an election. The system is rigged. The system is fixed." Yes, it is, but you can still win if you have an inspiring leader and a hard-working base, and that was proven.
Mm-hmm.
That was proven in this election that the hard-working people, and an inspiring leader can still win an election in America. But,
that was proven with Reagan, but they forgot.
Yeah, they
Trevor,
did,
I've been
but they make all these excuses.
For over 2 years, and that's been a message that you've always been telling people.
Mm-hmm.
You got 18 months, you got 12 months, and I kind of chuckled when we were down to I'm sitting there with you once again, and you're saying you got 6 weeks. I thought, geez, and then, of course, it as you were hoping, it happened, because if the public does not get energized, what did you usually say? Give me your closing line where you talk about at least you can do what with your children?
Yeah, look, I would say, look, in my speeches, I say, look, I want you to work like you've never worked before, because this is an opportunity. And I say, I can't promise you very much, but I can promise you 2 things. If you do nothing, your children will live in slavery. But if you give it everything you've got for your God, your country, your constitution, even if you lose, you can still look your children in the eye and say, I did everything I could. And what is that worth to you, But even better, you can win, and you can give your children not just the amazing country you inherited, but one even greater. And that is now a real possibility in front of us. That is something that most people thought was impossible 6 months ago, and now it's a real possibility. And that's pretty fantastic, in my opinion.
Yeah, well said.
Well, Trevor, thanks for joining us on the program. enemieswithinmovie.com, folks, if you want to get the film. And remind them again, Trevor, where they can get the America Under Siege. How can they find that?
Yeah, just go to just Google it. Go to YouTube. All you have to do is it's available for free. Just look up America Under Siege Civil War 2017, and it'll come up.
All right. Well, thanks for the hard work that you do, Trevor. And, you are – and, it's funny what I'm getting ready to say, because you came from another country. You came to America to fight the good fight. But you know what, sir? You are a patriot.
Well, I appreciate that. I really – from someone like you, that's kind words, because I consider you guys very much in that class, believe me. And so I appreciate those words. We're all in the same fight. It doesn't matter where we come from. It's what we believe in that counts, isn't it?
Right.
Quick question, fast response. Will you or will you not, do you think, be a speaker at CPAC?
Probably not, but we will be showing both movies there in various venues. And I'll be actively working Radio Row, but I don't think I will be a speaker.
Okay. All right. Well, good to talk to you again, my friend.
Okay. Thanks, Dennis and Doug and all the crew there. Much appreciated.
Thanks,
and we'll catch up soon. Bye-bye.
Okay. Thank you.
Doug.
Yes, sir.
I've got MSNBC here on mute, and they've got Representative Ted Lieu accusing Trump of being mentally unbalanced. They're throwing everything but the kitchen sink at this guy.
That's what they do.
Is that
That's
the pot
what the
calling the kettle black?
And the thing is, what's funny is they project. Everything they do is project. They're actually the ones that are mentally imbalanced.
If Nancy Pelosi isn't nuts, I'm a raccoon.
You know what? We were going to do a break at 20 till, but Trevor Loudon was on with us. So we didn't get a chance. So we're not going to go to break per se, but I am going to give the opportunity for these ads to go again. Enemies Within. This second hour, is because of these two gentlemen. They're in the studio with me, and Dennis Jackson from Bravis Corporation has part of his sponsorship is in the name of Enemies Within, the film Enemies Within Movie.com, based on the book by the same name, written by Trevor Loudon. And I'm telling you, you just heard Trevor on the air with us. The film is fantastic. Everybody in the country needs to see this movie. If they did, the direction of this country would change drastically for the better. The movie rips off the mask of over 100 members of Congress that are under the control of socialism, communism, Muslim Brotherhood, Democrat Socialists of America, Communist Party USA, so on and so forth. And your representatives, these Democrats that are in office, these people who are compromised
on intelligence committees,
they're on intelligence. They could not pass a standard FBI security check to be a dog catcher, much less hold office. I encourage everyone to see this movie, again, in enemieswithinmovie.com, and also America Under Siege, Civil War 2017. Look it up. Watch it for free on YouTube. America Under Siege, Civil War 2017. And Kurt, go ahead and say what you need to do about your company.
And Franchise Experts 360, a franchise consulting firm. If you're looking to buy a small business, you're looking to leave corporate America, give Franchise Experts 360 a call at 951-927-7787. We'll help you become successful.
We're going to talk about Neil Gorsuch in just a moment, as well as the Los Angeles Republicans. But I promised Alex Ferguson the opportunity to read one of his poems. Now, those of you who are listeners, you know that his poems are always doozies. They pull no punches, and they say it like it is. So make sure you're sitting down, you're strapped in, you're ready for the ride. Are you ready to roll, Alex, with your poem?
Ready and able.
Fire away.
Okay, this one goes back to 1986. It says, it's called World War Last. Mao Zedong said it back 50-some years ago. In 21, we got the word from Comrade Chairman Ho. The Western world was guilty of crimes. The sentence could only be blood. A bloody red scythe must mow them down, their sovereignty dragged in the mud. The whole wide world must flame in war just one little bit at a time. The struggle for peace a murder crusade for the struggling souls of mankind. V.I. Lenin crafted the plan, his nightmare lives on to this day. The Western world, blinded by fear, lifts millions of faces to pray. Nuclear fire sears their hearts, a fire that no one will light, an unlit fire that darkens the mind and plunges the world into night. The tyranny of Genghis Khan, the empire that Hitler dreamed of, were simple-minded child's play compared to the socialist dove. The leftist sings a song of peace, a song of battle flags furled. All battle flags except, that is, the one that now darkens the world. Not only must we bend our knee when hammer and sickle appear, we must scorn the song of Kennedy, abandoning friends far and near. Who sings that we shall overcome? It certainly can't be us. We who cower and wring our hands while friends are ground into dust. Where are the heroes of 76, the hearts that always stood true? Thank God they cannot see us now. Our shame would break them in two.
As always, incredible. Yeah, magnificent, too, as if I must say.
I like that.
I knew you would. All right, Neil Gorsuch, at a press conference 2 weeks before the inauguration, Donald Trump reaffirmed one of his central campaign promises that he would appoint conservative justices to the United States Supreme Court. It's one of the reasons I got elected, Trump said. I think the people of this country did not want to see what was happening with the Supreme Court, so I think it was very, very big decision as to why I was elected. Today, now President Trump is rewarding social conservatives because his nomination for the Supreme Court is Neil Gorsuch, a circuit judge of the U.S. Court of Appeals for the 10th Circuit. And by his record, social conservatives have much to applaud. They have a lot to be excited about. Neil Gorsuch, at 49, was appointed to the 10th Circuit in 2006 by President George W. Bush. Here's the key. Little controversy, confirmed with a voice vote by the U.S. Senate. Democrats were fine with him. And this is his way, I think, of really setting up the Democrat Party. The Democrats, he's trapping them with this choice, I think. How can they say, well, he's no good when they've already they've already approved his appointment as a circuit court judge?
Absolutely. It's going to show their hypocrisy in this.
Absolutely. I think he's setting them up.
And here's the second part. He's 49 years old. This guy could be there for 30 years or more.
Right.
I mean, what a great appointment. Go young. Go with somebody who's got bipartisan support in the past.
Right.
This is beautiful. This is the way it should be.
Well, I tell you, I enjoyed reading a comment the other day where a Democrat was really upset at what he called the poor thinking of either Obama or the selfishness of the existing people on the court, Democrats, about whether it be Ruth Bader Ginsburg or any of the others, that they should have retired.
So you could replace them with a nice young Democrat.
3 or 4 years ago,
Yeah.
so it wouldn't have been a last year step down, like the situation when Judge Scalia died, and now it's the last year. They haven't appointed anybody in the last year for 80 years. Right. But, if Ruth or any of these had stepped down, they wouldn't have that worry, because
Absolutely.
how many of them are going to make it another 4 or possibly 8 years?
Right.
They aren't.
They aren't.
And if we don't go tit for tat, well, it's a liberal, so we're going to appoint a liberal. That's not the way it works.
Right.
Elections have consequences. If he winds up replacing 2 or 3 of the liberal judges, I mean, it could be a 7-2.
Yeah.
By the time he leaves office. So I find this very, very interesting, somewhat ironic.
Now, what fascinates me too about this is that Gorsuch is not only young, but he's very, very conservative. I mean, of the 3 names, he's the most conservative of the bunch. And when we were going into this election, we had the Democrats proclaiming, well, not just the Democrats, I'm sorry, but the never-Trumpers, the conservative never-Trumpers, saying, hey, Trump is not a conservative. He's going to unleash his New York liberalism once he's in office. Don't trust him. Don't trust him. Well, so far so good. I really see the Gorsuch choice as being a stick in the eye of those never-Trumpers that were saying, well, this guy isn't really a conservative.
The conservatives in Congress will be hard-pressed to keep up with the, quote, non-conservative that is now in the White House.
All right. Any comments about Gorsuch, Alex? We've got just a few minutes left of the program, by the way.
Well, I mentioned that the left is showing its hand. I think God is showing his hand. They could have had somebody like Ginsburg retire and Obama appoint a replacement, but it didn't happen that way, and I think that God clouded their minds.
And real quick, last thing I want to talk about. Last Sunday, I was at the South lineup. I want you to sit and digest this real quick. The South Los Angeles Inglewood Republican Assembly. I didn't even know there were that many Republicans in L.A. County, but it turns out there's a lot of them. And I walk into this room, and it's a dominantly a black Republican club and some Hispanics. And I had never seen so many Make America Great Again hats in one room in my life. These people love Donald J. Trump. They love conservatism. They love their country. And coincidentally, they were all a bunch of Christians, too. Enough to make a liberal's head explode, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. But I was here's what really kind of surprised me. I was expecting, at least I'd have a few people that might have a few off ideas, because the black culture has been so inundated with, the poor messaging and the leftism and all that. I'll be honest with you, they're more conservative than most conservatives I know. It was an incredible time. And one of the people I met with was this historian out of San Bernardino. And she's talking about how accurate Hillary's America was. Understand, this is a black historian. Now, I want to remind people, I looked it up. In L.A. County, there are 1 million registered Republicans. There's a lot more Republicans in Southern California than we thought. Here's the question now. If we have that kind of community, can we utilize that community to turn this country around? We got 1 minute.
I think we saw it in this election. That silent majority is in that community. They came out and voted this time around, and they voted for Trump. And I think when we had Larry Elder on, a month or 2 ago,
right?
This is part of his work, I believe, in L.A.
Okay, we got seconds left. Dennis?
Well, we need to take advantage of that. Again, it doesn't help for the Electoral College because, we still lost California. But as long as we can maintain the conservative offices that we do have and try and build upon that, I do think that we will get more people crossing the lines and coming our way.
And the music's starting. Alex, plug yourself.
Go to conservativecannonade.org. I'm telling you, it's got all the good stuff.
DouglasVGibbs.com. United we stand, combined we kick butt. God bless America. God bless you. See you next week.
The proceeding was a paid program. Views and claims expressed are those of the program producer and are not endorsed by this station. Opinions expressed are not necessarily those of radio station KMET, its management, employees, or affiliates.
This is 1490 AM KMET, Banning, Beaumont, Redlands, and Palm Springs.